Hey guys, and welcome to Savour Kilkenny online. I'm JP McMahon from Aniar, Cava and Tartare. As part of the demonstration today, I'm going to be cooking our brown bread. So we've been making the brown bread about 10 years, and I'm sure many of you watching will make soda bread, or their parents or grandparents will make soda bread. And it's a wonderful tradition in Ireland of making soda bread. Our soda bread is a little bit different in Aniar. Not so much different in the way that it's made, but we bake it at a much lower temperature, sometimes as low as 140, just as a really low and slow bake to make it as moist as possible. And the other one is we make our mixture very, very wet. And the reason why we do that is because once the bread goes into the oven and starts to expand, the more water, the more liquid you have in it, then you can your bread will be much softer and more and moist. And that's, I suppose, one of the reasons why bread soda is much more associated, particularly in Europe, with cakes than actually with bread. But our tradition in Ireland is certainly with yeast, not with yeast bread, but with soda bread. So I'm sure you have the recipe. The recipe is from my book that came out this year, which is, I'll just show it to you here, which is the Irish Cookbook. It's published by Fidon. It came out in February. And on 27th and 28th of November, you can, those of you watching this video can avail of a special discount. And you'll see the link just below here. And you'll be able to go on and get 20% off the signed copy, which I will sign. You can request a message or anything like that, particularly for the Christmas period. And the book looks at Irish food in a very, very broad way, from 10,000 years ago all the way up to the present. It is a cookery book. It has about 480 recipes in it, but I wanted to try and explore the history of Irish cooking and the very many different periods that we associate with Irish cooking, and also to try and reclaim a little bit of cooking that possibly we didn't think of as Irish. And our use of spices, for one, is certainly something we need to consider, and also the Anglo-Irish tradition of cooking and how that sits into the broader narrative of Irish food. Making the bread is super simple. You weigh out everything in advance. So I have 800 grams of wholemeal flour, and I'm going to add 200 grams of plain white flour, and that's just to cut through the coarseness of the wholemeal flour. You can absolutely make it with 100% wholemeal flour, or if you have any other local millers, or if there's a flour you particularly like, certainly you can do that. If you're making a gluten-free version of this bread, which we do every day in Aniar, what you're going to do is you're going to use 800 grams of gluten-free brown flour and 200 grams of gluten-free white flour. The rest of the recipe is exactly the same, and we developed this recipe a couple of years ago, and it's one I give to a lot of people, because often with gluten-free bread, I find it's the structure is it's a little bit cakey and crumbly, and I find it just works. It works very well with this. So to our flours, we're going to add our salt. So it's 10 grams of salt. And the ease of making brown bread, again, is if you remember, is in a simple way, and it's also the same as making scones. It's just to add all your dry ingredients together and then fold in your wet ingredients. It is that simple. Your baking powder is going to go in next, and I like to just sieve that in, just to get it evenly distributed. Often what happens if you throw it in and the bread isn't mixed properly, then your bread kind of pops up in one area where it shouldn't, and often this will be one of the reasons. So just fold that over each other. And the nice thing about this bread is it's a no-knead bread. And to be honest, the soda bread does not need to be kneaded. That's with yeast bread, and I think we have a little bit of confusion there with in our own tradition. So one of the things that we do that you usually don't add into soda bread is we add seeds into it. And seeds are very popular. They're very good for you. They're a great texture, and they can add great texture to it. So we add in 3 handfuls of sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, and linseeds. And again, if there's any other seeds that you like, you can absolutely add them in. But like a seeded bread is a really good thing to do. So all our dry ingredients are in there now. Our wet ingredients. Now I already have my buttermilk and my stout in the jug. I'm going to add our 2 eggs. And always, again, crack your eggs on a flat surface. Not on the side. They crack better on a flat surface. I don't know why that is, but it is what it is. And then we put in 200 grams of treacle. And considering we're in Kilkenny, this is apple treacle from Highbank Orchards, and we've been using it for years. They also do apple balsamic vinegar. They do apple vinegar. They do ciders, sherry, or an apple sack, like a sherry but made from apples. So really great innovators when it comes to Irish food, and I really love their products. So just try and get out as much as possible. Treacle is a difficult thing to get out of the tin. But again, if you want to use an alternative, like if you're watching from somewhere else in the world, I know in the cookbook when we put this recipe in, we used molasses. You can use maple syrup, raw or liquid sugar cane is another one you can use as well. So any form of liquid sugar, honey as well would be one you can use as well. So all of your dry ingredients, all of your wet ingredients, and now I'm ready to start mixing. So I'll move this book out of the way. And again, as I said, the bread does not need any kneading. So just add it in about 2 goes. Pop it in, mixing all the time with your spatula. And then add in the rest. Make sure you get it all out. And as I said to you, the bread will be quite wet. It'll be a lot wetter than you expect it to be. And I think this is the secret of making a really moist soda bread. And then you also can't knead it, which is, I think kneading is detrimental to soda bread. It's not a good thing for the soda bread because it just makes it too dense. It's like if you over knead a scone, if any of you have ever made scones. So just making sure there's no dry bits at all. So the mixture we're left with is quite a wet brown mixture. That's the colour is coming from the treacle, but it's also coming from the stout. So we put stout in. Again, if you don't want to cook with stout, you can put buttermilk in. Just use I think it's a litre of buttermilk instead, or you can use regular milk, or you can use beer if you want. Nice beer bread. Now we're going to get our tins. Now we're just going to use some pastry spray, just to make sure that it doesn't stiff. A few nice alternatives that you can do is, and I see it being done more and more, is animal fat was very important in Irish cooking in the past. And it's not something we use so much now. I suppose it was stigmatized a lot in the last couple of decades, but it is becoming more popular now. And I know the guys up in Hampshire, when they make their brown bread, I think they brush it with Dexter beef fat and then bake it. You can also use lamb fat or pork fat. And some of these traditions are still very strong in European countries such as Poland. And I think it's something that we should try and get a little bit more into. Again, chicken fat as well. If you have rendered chicken fat as a liquid, brushing your tin with that and then baking your bread. Of course, I wouldn't do it if you have any vegetarians in the house or you're feeding the bread to vegetarians, but it is something I think that is a really good alternative. So I usually put the brown bread, I divide it out amongst the 2 containers in stages. So I don't just dump all the bread into the one container, all the mix into one container. And the reason for that is just I want everything to be evenly distributed, and I don't want too much of anything in one loaf. So it's a little safety switch valve, just to make sure that you don't end up with a load of seeds in one loaf and then no seeds in another. It's highly unlikely if you've mixed it properly, but just in case, and then you blame me for your messing your bread up. The last thing we're going to do is put on some pinhead oatmeal. You can use rolled oats if you want, but I think the pinhead oatmeal is a nice little touch. And then we're going to bake that at 140 for about an hour and a half. I usually take the bread up to about 90 degrees to make sure in the center. So if you are cooking your bread and you want to check, you can use the old technique of just putting a needle in, and if the needle comes out dry like you would do with a cake. If not, put your thermometer in and make sure it's about 85, 90 degrees is Celsius is the set temperature for bread. So I'm going to pop them into the oven, and then I'll come back to you. Now, so bread is in the oven, just a little bit on the cooking temperature. You can cook it at 180 if you want. It'll probably take about 45 minutes. Don't feel bad if you do this, or don't worry about if you have to do it. And when the loaf comes out, it's going to look something like this. So you pop it out. This is one I did earlier on. And bread is usually good for about 48 hours, at least 48 hours. I like to cling wrap the bread, or to wrap it in the wax paper, the alternative to cling film. And the reason for that is that it will keep fresh for longer. And that is one of the differences between the yeast bread and the soda bread. I mean, yeast bread is best eaten on the day or possibly the day after. I think you get at least 3 days out of soda bread, if not 4. So, and that's one of the reasons why I think the tradition of soda bread remained with us longer. I think it's the legacy of famine and colonization and poor land and lots, and the weather as well, for growing flour suitable for yeast. But I think all of those factors play into the tradition that we have now. And it is a great tradition, and I think it's something that I think we should all be proud to engage with. So I hope you've enjoyed that demo. As I said, you have the link is on screen if you want to order the cookbook for Christmas or for someone's birthday. If you have any questions about the bread or about anything else, you can email me at food@aniarrestaurant.ie, and I will get back to you. And enjoy the rest of the demonstrations and have a good Christmas. Thank you.